There are many different ways to create a grayscale image from a color image. A lot of people just apply the hue saturation effect, remove all the saturation, and they have grayscale. Other people get a little trickier. You use the set channels or shift channels effect and pick just the red, just the green, or just the blue channel to create a more stylized version of the original image. Well, guess what? Those are not the best effects to create grayscale. Some of them create artifacts or issues, and there's other effects which just give you more flexibility or create a cleaner image. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite effects to create grayscale and why I don't use hue saturation or one of the set or shift channels to do grayscale imagery. As mentioned earlier, the way a lot of people create a grayscale image is they select their footage, choose effect, color correction, hue saturation, and remove all the saturation from the image. Voila, instant grayscale. However, this can cause artifacts in some footage. For example, here's a very colorful piece of footage with what looks like a smooth color transition from blue through pinks to orange. Let's apply the same effect, hue saturation, remove all saturation, and you'll see this line appear where there is a color transition. That's not very pleasant. It looks smooth without it, but there definitely is a line when we create a grayscale. If you want to create just a quick grayscale image, the better way to go is to apply effect, color correction, tint. And as default, it maps the darkest colors to black, the brightest colors to white, and you have a nice, smooth grayscale image. Notice there's no artifact of this line here. This was the hue saturation approach. This is the tint approach, much nicer. We'll go back to this piece of real footage here. I'll go ahead and take a snapshot of how this looks. Turn off hue saturation, apply tint at its defaults, and you see I've got actually a slightly more contrasty image. This is the hue saturation version. This is the tint version. Okay, so if you're just interested in instant gratification, tint instead of hue saturation. But let's go further. Let's create a custom grayscale image. I'll delete both of these for now. It's always interesting to look at the individual color channels of your source footage. In this case, the red channel obviously really shows where the sky's shirt is. But we also have interesting information in the green channel, like the palm fronds, and in the blue channel, the blue sky. We could choose any one of those to create an interesting grayscale image from our source, and they would all look different. Choose which one looks best for our purposes. Based on that, many people apply effect, channel, and something like set channels or shift channels. And say they decide that they really liked how the green channel would look, they would set everything to green and create their grayscale image. Well, that's the approach you want to take. Again, there's a faster, more flexible plugin to use. I'll delete shift channels. We'll start with the seldom used effect, channel, calculations. Now, we discussed calculations at length in another movie, but it's worth just touching on in this movie. Here, you choose where your input is going to come from. And again, it can be just the red, the green, the blue, or its own version of a grayscale, a mixture of all three. And you can invert it. So right away, if you were using set or shift channels, instead, calculations is a lot faster to use. But let's go a little bit deeper. Another fun effect applies effect, channel, channel combiner. And again, we've discussed this extensively in other movies, but let's look at it here. And the defaults for channel combiner look hideous, so you need to set a few things up. You can start off by saying, let's come from lightness and go to lightness. Now we've got a grayscale image based on the lightness of the pixels in the image. Once we have this basic setup, we can go back to the from pop-up and explore other options. For example, luminance is a little bit different. It's weighted based on our perception of color rather than being a blind mixture of pixel values. And you see, for example, shirt turns up much better using luminance instead. But you have other choices as well. You have the red, green, and blue channels we played with earlier. The red really shows up as shirt is white. And there's also these min RGB and max RGB choices. Take the minimum value per pixel or the maximum value per pixel. The results are very different, many of them are pleasing, and it's very quick to set up. Go back to lightness for now. Now so far I've been showing you instant gratification answers. If you really want to get in and tweak and customize your look, a really good effect to use, color correction, channel mixer. Again, channel mixers discussed in another movie. The secret here is to enable the monochrome switch. When you do that, these bottom 8 values for green and blue are ignored, and you're working with just these top 4. You get to mix individual amounts of the green, red, and blue channels to custom mix your grayscale blend. You can even subtract channels and add other channels to create custom blends to get custom grayscales out of the result. And you also have an overall brightening and darkening parameter to tweak the final result. And if that's not enough control, check out Effect, Color Correction, Colorama. It's perhaps the ultimate tinting filter, including grayscale tints. We covered in detail in a set of other movies. And again, just to remind you of the possibilities, I created this little shootout composition, where I'm starting with the original color image, but playing around with things like channel mixer, calculations to go ahead and pick a particular color channel combiner, the old-fashioned desaturation method, the tint method, and who says you need to end up grayscale? You can go ahead and end up with a slightly warm tint or slightly cool tint by using the tritone effect and choosing exactly what color you want to use for the midtone. You could pick a neutral gray or open up the color picker and pick something else, like something a little bit more blue or maybe something a little bit more on the violet side. Click OK, and there you go. We'll RAM preview them, and you'll see the different results and all the different variations of a grayscale image we can come up with from this one color image, including cool and warm versions there at the end. So before you just reach for hue saturation and desaturate an image, think a little bit, spend another minute, try a couple different effects and a couple different pop-ups, and you may come up with something that looks better and is more appropriate for the specific shot you're working with.